Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Dr. Marc L Boom.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all very much. Please continue with your meal as we talk today. It's a great pleasure to be here today to update you on the work of the Greater Houston Partnership and to talk about its direction for 2023. I look forward to welcoming Bob Harvey back up here in a few minutes for a quick fireside chat to talk about what's coming up this year. Before I go too far, I'd like to acknowledge a couple of special guests attending the meeting today. Both of my parents, John and Monique Boom, emigrated from Belgium to the U.S. in 1965 and found their way to Houston by 1980, where they found their home. My mom's recovering from an illness, but my father, John, is here with us today. And most importantly, my wife of over 32 years, Dr. Julie Boom, is here at the head table with us today. Now, she was raised in Dallas, but thankfully I convinced her that Houston is a much, much better place to live. Unfortunately, I can't seem to break her of rooting for the Dallas Cowboys. But seriously, I'm so glad, Julie, you're here. I love you. Thank you for being here today. And thank you to my colleagues at Houston Methodist and my board of directors, all of you. Thank you for being here. I'm very honored to serve the partnership as its chair this year. You know, one of the things that makes it so special for me personally is who has come before me. Two friends of mine who sadly passed away in 2022. The partnership was founded in part by Charles Duncan, who we honored at last year's event with the Bob McNair Civic Leadership Award. We unfortunately lost Charles this fall. He was a great mentor, a role model, and a friend to me. He actually served on the board of directors of Houston Methodist and later on our foundation, and I had the privilege of serving as his primary care physician for over 20 years. The other person I want to acknowledge again now is Jamie Roots. We honored him before, of course, just before lunch with the Director Emeritus designation. I want to add that Jamie was a very close personal friend of mine. In fact, when I was called by Thad about the possibility of taking the chair position, Jamie was the very first person I called to gain perspective and advice. And it's because of people like Charles and Jamie and the hallmark of Houston being our ability to work together, finding solutions to tough problems, that the partnership is the envy of similar organizations all around the country. Houston is a remarkable city. I've spent most of my life here, but I've also lived in 3 states in the Northeast and as a child and in 3 different countries. And there's simply no comparison. Houston has a can-do attitude. It's as close to a meritocracy as anywhere on the planet, and it wears its diversity on its sleeve with great pride. Our economy is strong and resilient, better positioned than virtually anywhere else in spite of challenging times in the national economy. Our unemployment is low, and we've got many exciting projects like the Ion District, the TMC Helix Park, the addition of global headquarters, the ship channel expansion, and among countless others. Now, when I think of the role of the business community working through the Greater Houston Partnership, I sum it up very succinctly. The community and the people within it thrive when businesses thrive. Businesses thrive when the community and the people within it thrive. Businesses create jobs. They drive the economy. When they're run properly, they give people jobs with passion and purpose, offering them personal growth and fulfillment. Businesses require and also enable a robust educational system, safe communities, a high quality of life, and an affordable cost of living. Businesses want an environment that enables them to be successful, and they want every hardworking person to have the same chance to be successful. You know, when I talk with the Houston Methodist Board about what keeps me up at night, I talk about the usual things, the economy, expected and unexpected challenges, etc. But you know what I talk about most? I talk about culture. Our culture is an institution, of course, but also the culture of our community, of our country. Because you see, when we get culture right, we thrive. When we don't get it right, we tend to flounder. So let me take you back to, of all places, high school English, to the Odyssey. The Sirens were creatures from Greek mythology. Their songs, their Siren Call, were simply irresistible and lured many sailors to their deaths on the rocks. Odysseus, also known as Ulysses, when he was returning home from the Trojan War, recognized this. And as a great leader, he lashed himself to the mast of his boat, and he plugged all of his sailors' ears with wax so they could resist the call and travel safely and get home. Well, the irresistible siren call today in our country is constant, unnecessary conflict and disagreement. Our political parties can't resist this siren song. Our press can't resist this siren song. Most people can't resist this siren song. And in fact, what's evolved is that our political system is now designed precisely to get these unacceptable results. The system reinforces views farthest to the left, it reinforces views farthest to the right, and it almost always skips over most of the voices along the spectrum in the middle. This gets amplified by the press and by the internet. Now let me tell you, I experienced it. We saw this on steroids during COVID-19, and it will only continue to worsen unless we do something about it. We've created a perpetual us versus them narrative, and we're sorting ourselves out politically, religiously, geographically, etc. At best, we're creating gridlock and an inability to better control the environment and create a better environment for our people. At worst, we're tearing away at the very fabric of what made this country so great. And it just doesn't have to be this way. Think about the best decisions we make as business leaders. The best decisions happen when well-intentioned people with differing opinions work together to see all sides of an issue. They respect one another, and most importantly, they listen to one another. They come to consensus on the best solution and hammer out compromises if necessary. Because the right answer is almost never on one end of an issue or the other. It's almost always somewhere in between. In other words, in contrast to what we see so much in our daily lives and with political discourse, the right answer is rarely an or. It is an and. So this brings me back to the role of business in the community. When business thrives, our community thrives, and vice versa. So what we need from business, from all of us, is a focus on the and, not the or. Did you know the word and is the 5th most used word in the English language? Or the 31st. And all of us already know this intuitively. We just need to put this into practice. This isn't brand new thinking, but it's more important than ever. Jim Collins, in his classic book series, wrote about the tyranny of the or and the genius of the and. Sound familiar? We face or decisions versus and decisions every day. Everything important always comes down to an and issue. So the energy transition, we've heard a lot about that today. We are going to use fossil fuels far into the future, and we need to do so cleanly. And we need to use technology to identify and develop alternatives to fossil fuels. This is not an or. This and is the absolute imperative to ensure that Houston is the energy capital of the world, not just the oil and gas capital. Immigration. This country was built by immigrants. My parents were 2 of them back in 1965. We heard about the Chows today. We all need more workers in our companies. And at the same time, we all need secure borders, and we have every right as a country to control those. This is an and. The I-45 project, it was an and of jobs and motility and safety and enhancing and protecting surrounding communities. You'll see the partnership, as we talked a little bit earlier, supporting the University of Houston's quest for a $1 billion endowment from the state of Texas. Now I know we've got a bunch of UT and Texas A&M alum in the room, but this isn't, I knew we'd get some whoops. This is an and. I'm gonna give you a hook 'em back. This is an and in addition to the support of those great schools. And this is an and for Rice University and all those other universities we heard about, because a strong academic environment benefits all of those institutions. As business leaders, we need to be the Odysseus for our institutions. We need to be the Odysseus for our communities. Odysseus was portrayed by Homer as wise, eloquent, resourceful, courageous, a voice of reason, and self-restrained. Doesn't that describe the type of leaders that we all aspire to be in our businesses? So we need to lash ourselves to the mast and resist the siren call of unnecessary conflict. We must be wise leaders who use a focus on the culture in our institutions and in our communities to improve the world we live in. You know, collectively, the employers represented by the people here in this ballroom and throughout the partnership represent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of employees. So as such, we have a profound responsibility to bring and model balance and moderation to our communities. And we can't shy away. We must embrace this responsibility, and we must take a stand when it matters. So let's talk a little bit about how we do this. We've all focused on diversity, equity, inclusion in our institutions. I love this expansive definition of diversity from the University of Iowa, but I'm going to call out the last two elements: political perspective and associational preferences. If we're really serious about diversity, we need to respect everyone's political viewpoints and their differences of opinion. Some have views that are on the right. Some have views that are on the far left. And the vast majority are somewhere along the spectrum of political thought in between. And isn't that wonderful? Note these two quotes from Barack Obama and Ronald Reagan. "We accept without reservation our obligation to the aged, the disabled, and those unfortunates who through no fault of their own must depend on their fellow man." Sounds like something Obama would say, right? America says, we'll give you opportunity, but you've got to earn your success. Sounds like classic Reagan, doesn't it? Nope. See, we don't have to be that far apart. We can find common ground. We can find the and not the or. So given all this, what's our job as business leaders, as citizens, as the members of the partnership? First, demand of yourself and of your entire workforce an embrace of every single definition of diversity. Create an inclusive, welcoming workforce where all of your employees lead fulfilling careers full of passion and purpose. Create an environment, a culture, where it is okay to respectfully disagree. In fact, an environment where it is expected that people will sometimes respectfully disagree, and they will use those disagreements to make the very best decisions. Even if we have deeply held beliefs that are different, listen, respect others, and find common ground. There's always more common ground than there is difference. Talk about an and. Seek out people with whom you disagree, who aren't just like you. Listen to them, work hard to understand and where they come from. Urge moderation. Note, I'm not saying we ask everyone to be politically moderate. What I'm saying is that no matter what, we respect each other's viewpoints. Recognize that there are countless forces trying to pull us apart, and there are precious few working actively to bring us together. We can change that. You know, social media algorithms are designed to feed you what you're interested in. When that's a hobby, I love soccer, so I get a lot of English Premier League, World Cup articles, that kind of thing. It's awesome, I love it. But when it's one of my deeply held beliefs, it may not be so great. I may be guilty of only hearing from people who think a lot like me rather than listening to all viewpoints. How am I going to be a good leader if I do that? So you know how I try to handle that. I do my best to make it a game to confuse all those darn algorithms. I go out of my way to watch different news channels, read different newspapers, etc. And most of all, I limit, and then when I do experience, vary my exposure to any news channel program that isn't a reporting on the news, but that rather represents a group of like-minded individuals all taking the same approach to an issue. You know, last year at Houston Methodist, we built a new tower for our Houston Methodist Baytown Hospital. State-of-the-art, beautiful, a real step forward for the community and for the teams that work there. And we had a big open discussion. What do we name this thing? You know what our employees chose? Unity Tower. Unity. Our people, our community, they're hungry for more unity. They want the and. And the partnership is at its best when it helps mold consensus, when Houston business leaders roll up their sleeves and pursue the and as we tackle the issues that may impede Houston's long-term growth. So let me give you a couple of real-world examples. How do we ensure that we have a public education system focused on meeting the diverse needs of all of Houston's young people, our future employees, preparing them for careers of tomorrow, and also hold school districts accountable for academic performance? How do we tackle infrastructure challenges of an ever-growing city, like highways and flood mitigation, and also respect the rights and needs of long-term neighbors who may be impacted by those projects? How do we ensure a criminal justice system that keeps violent offenders off the street and avoids systemic challenges that can be brought on by over-incarceration that can wreck families and communities? These are very real challenges facing Houston. They require an and mentality to develop solutions to move our city forward. And that's the type of work we do at the Greater Houston Partnership. And we need a commitment and engagement of a broad, diverse set of business leaders to advance solutions through fractious debate, singularly focused on Houston's long-term success and creating opportunity for all Houstonians. To me, that's the beauty of living in Houston. This is a community that has never taken no for an answer. It's a community that rises to every challenge, and everybody supports each other in times of crisis. And that's what's so special about the Greater Houston Partnership. It is a partnership between the businesses and the people and the leaders of the great city of Houston, the ultimate and. So thank you for the privilege of serving this great organization.